A place to belong shouldn't be that hard to find, but for two people escaping the weight of their own names, it's everything. She makes it sound so simple, just a girl with white headphones and a smile, suggesting a relationship built entirely on the relief of being heard without being judged. Second-year high school is just a series of rooms Narumi Kouta doesn't fit into. He watches the cliques form from the outside, his fingers drumming a restless rhythm on the desk, while the air in the classroom grows heavy with his own isolation. He'd rather be anywhere else, because as he stares at his phone, the thought hits him. Even so, for me, it's still better than being at home. Natsuki is the only person who dares to break through Kouta's armor, a childhood friend who still bothers to care. But even the best friend in the world can't fix the quiet disaster waiting behind Narumi's front door. Kouta's voice goes flat as he admits the truth. My parents just remarried and I can't get used to it. Natsuki gets it, the awkwardness of a house that's suddenly full of strangers who are supposed to be family. He offers a place to kill time, but Kouta just offers a tired thanks. The reality is simpler and sharper. It's just plain uncomfortable being there. So he runs. He finds his sanctuary under the neon sign of a family restaurant called Flowers. Surrounded by the chatter of strangers and the cold hum of the drink bar, he sips on melon soda and waits for the clock to hit 10. It's the only place where the silence feels like a choice rather than a cage. But he's not the only regular hiding out in a booth. Just a few tables away sits the one girl who stands out more than anyone in school, her large white headphones isolating her from the world. Kouta watches her, realizing that his safe haven is shared by one more regular there besides me. At school, Kazemiya Kohaku is a celebrity with a landmine for a personality. When classmates crowd around her, not for who she is, but for a connection to her famous singer's sister, the warmth drains from her face instantly. Her response is a jagged, final, no. They don't get the hint. They push for an autograph, for a debut story, for anything but a real conversation. Kohaku's grip on her headphones tightens as the noise of their entitlement drowns out everything else. She doesn't yell, she just lets the coldness settle in. Didn't you hear me? The crowd scatters like they've just seen a fuse burning down. From the back of the room, Kouta watches the fallout. He doesn't join in the gossip, he just sees someone who's tired of being used as a bridge to someone else's fame. The school is full of experts on her life who have never actually spoken to her. They know about her sister, the singer-songwriter Kwan, and they assume Kohaku's beauty is just another accessory for her perfect life. But Narumi sees the gap between the celebrity and the girl sitting alone in a restaurant booth. Jealousy is a loud machine. People whisper about her staying out late, claiming she's partying or hanging with a bad crowd. But Narumi knows better. He knows a side of her that no one else sees, the side that just wants a quiet meal and a moment of peace. Fate has a twisted sense of humor. The restaurant is unusually packed, forcing Kouta into the last available seat, the one right next to her. He freezes, his heart hammering against his ribs, as he realizes just how close she is. His thoughts are a frantic blur. This is bad, we were sitting far apart until now. He tries to disappear into the menu, focusing on anything but the girl 2 feet away. He orders the new omelet rice with shaking fingers, hoping the drink bar will provide a legitimate excuse to get up and move. He's a ghost in a school blazer, praying she doesn't look his way. She seems lost in her own screen, too focused on a video to notice the nervous wreck beside her. When his special golden omelet rice finally arrives, the steam rising off the plate is the only thing that calms his nerves. It's a small, delicious distraction in a very loud silence. The first bite is magic. The creamy eggs and rich sauce melt away the exhaustion of the day, making the world outside the restaurant feel like a distant memory. For a few minutes there is no school, no family drama, just the comfort of a warm meal and a moment of solitude. 8 p.m., 2 hours left of freedom before the curfew kicks in. He's just settling into his timeline when the phone buzzes, shattering the peace. It's a call from home, the one place he's trying to forget. He answers with a hesitation that speaks volumes. Hello, Mom? He tells the lie he's practiced a dozen times. He's hungry, he's just finishing work, he'll be home soon. In the next booth, Kohaku's video has ended. She's not watching anymore. She's listening, her eyes fixed on the empty air as she hears the familiar sound of someone making excuses to stay away. He hangs up, the guilt of the deception weighing heavier than the meal in his stomach. He's just putting his phone away when a voice cuts through the ambient noise of the restaurant, startling him back to reality. Hey. She's looking right at him now, the barrier of the booth suddenly feeling very thin. There's no celebrity persona, no school armor, just a girl who recognized a kindred spirit in a few overheard sentences. She leans in and delivers the blow. You're also having trouble getting along with your family, right? Kouta can only blink in shock, his mind racing to catch up. She apologizes, explaining that she took off her headphones just in time to hear his side of the call. It's not malice, it's observation. She clarifies that she doesn't hate her mom, but the rest of the house, that's a different story. The tension in Kouta's shoulders begins to ebb as he realizes he's not the only one playing hide and seek with his own life. Kohaku looks down, her voice dropping as she admits the truth he already felt. I don't get along well with my family either. They find a strange, instant middle ground. Neither of them wants pity, and neither of them wants to explain. They both have a policy of not meddling in other people's family messes because they can barely handle their own. It's a mutual surrender to privacy. Then, the unthinkable happens. She laughs. It's a genuine, light sound that catches Kouta completely off guard. Haha, even the reason is the same. He stares, mesmerized by the shift in her expression. The Ice Queen didn't just melt, she vanished, leaving behind a girl who's finally found someone she doesn't have to perform for. The shock isn't over. She calls him by name, shattering his assumption that he was invisible to her. When he asks how she knows, she just gives him a look that's half teasing, half obvious. We're classmates after all. Besides, he's a regular here, it's hard not to notice him. It turns out their lives have been running on parallel tracks for months. The same restaurant, the same reasons, the same need to kill time in a place that doesn't feel like a home that isn't really a home anymore. The awkwardness has been replaced by a strange, effortless warmth. She looks at him with a small, knowing smile that makes his chest feel tight in a completely new way. We get along, don't we? And for the first time in a long time, Kouta doesn't have to lie. Yeah, we really do. Her chocolate ice cream arrives, a mountain of sweetness meant to kill the remaining time. She admits it's a bit of a waste of money, but it's her ritual for surviving the hours. Then, she pushes the bowl toward him, a casual invitation that feels like a massive shift. Want a bite? They talk about the food, the menu, and nothing in particular, and for once, the clock is the enemy. Before they know it, it's 9:30. The sanctuary is closing for the night, and the real world is waiting outside the glass doors. The walk home is bathed in moonlight, the silence between them no longer heavy, but full of something new. Kohaku slows her pace, turning to him with a look of sudden determination. The night air is crisp, but her voice is steady. Hey, I have a suggestion. She suggests they make this a regular thing, chatting like this to pass the time. It's an excuse to keep this feeling alive, to make the hours at the restaurant something to look forward to rather than just a way to endure. Kouta watches her, realizing she's right. Time does seem to pass faster when she's there. She wants a safe space to vent about school, about private matters, and about the things they both try to leave at the doorstep. She bites her lip, the vulnerability returning for just a second, as she adds the final piece. And family issues. It's a tempting offer. Kouta realizes he's never really talked about this with anyone, not even Natsuki. It's a secret shared between two strangers who know too much about each other. Kohaku watches him, already thinking ahead. Do we need any rules for this meetup? She leans in, a playful spark in her eyes as she defines the boundaries of their little alliance. This isn't a confession or a date, it's a pact. How about this? Our relationship is, she lays it out clearly, a boundary drawn in the moonlight. We just vent to each other and we won't go any further than that. How about that? It's a promise to keep things simple, a shield against the complications of real intimacy. Kouta accepts. It fits his principles perfectly. The heavy atmosphere is gone, replaced by a light-hearted debate about movies and recommendations. They aren't classmates or celebrities anymore. They're just two people walking home, laughing at something that isn't their own lives. The walk ends too soon at the base of a tall apartment building. Kohaku stops, her eyes lingering on Kouta for a second longer than necessary. The night is over, but the feeling remains. Time flew by, huh? She turns to go, but pauses one last time, her face lit up by a smile that could stop traffic if anyone were looking. It's warm, it's real, and it's a promise. After school tomorrow, let's meet at the usual place. See you tomorrow. The sidewalk is quiet, but Kouta's pocket is buzzing with a life he didn't have 2 hours ago. He stares at the screen, watching the bubbles pop up from an idol who usually exists only behind a barrier of admirers. She isn't just being polite, she's reaching out. "Thank you for seeing me off. Here's the movie I recommended earlier." He realizes with a flush of heat that they've crossed a line he never thought he'd touch. They even exchanged contact info. He shakes his head so hard it's a miracle his brain doesn't rattle. Getting hopes up for a girl like Kazemiya is a death sentence for his sanity. He needs to ground himself. This is just a family restaurant alliance, nothing more. He reaches for the door handle, the weight of the night already shifting back into the familiar, suffocating armor of a loner. He steps inside and delivers the most hollow sentence in his vocabulary: "I'm home." The air in the living room is thick with a desperate, curated peace. His mother and stepfather greet him with smiles that feel practiced, offering coffee and kindness like they're afraid he might shatter if they speak too loudly. It's an awkward routine that makes his skin crawl. Every welcome home is a reminder that he's a guest in a life that was supposed to be his. He beats a retreat to his room, the sigh leaving his chest the moment he's behind a closed door. The fracture happened during spring break. His mother remarried Akihiro-san, a man who fits the successful father mold perfectly, and then there's the daughter. Kotomi is smart, athletic, and effortlessly bright, the walking antithesis of everything Kouta feels he has become. In this pristine family atmosphere, Kouta isn't just an outlier, he's a failure who doesn't belong in the frame of their perfect portrait. A shadow falls across the doorway, and the perfect daughter appears. Kotomi doesn't just enter a room, she fills it with a terrifying level of sisterly concern. She scrutinizes him with those wide, judging eyes and drops the title that always feels like a trap. "Welcome home, brother." She notes his late arrival with a clinical precision, telling him the whole house was worried. She leans in, her voice dropping into a register that makes Kouta's stomach flip. She's heard rumors, a girl from their school hanging around late at night. The description hits too close to the girl he just left at the apartment building. He stays silent, his shadow darkening as she delivers a warning wrapped in a smile. "So, please be careful not to get seduced." He manages a weak thank you, but Kotomi isn't finished. She pivots to the family mission statement. It's hard for him to come home, she knows that, but for the sake of their parents, he needs to play his part. She defines their existence with a single crushing expectation. Everyone being together is what makes a normal family. It isn't a request, it's a social contract he never signed. She brightens up instantly, flipping back to her cheerful persona as if the lecture never happened. "You earned 10 step-sister points," she chirps before heading off to bed. Kouta stands in the silence of his room, the points feeling like a participation trophy for a game he's losing. He isn't tired. He stares at the TV screen, the glow of the movie menu his only companion while the rest of the house sleeps in their normal peace. Morning comes with a headache and the smell of a 5-star breakfast. Kotomi is already in the kitchen, a ladle in one hand and a bowl of rice in the other, the picture-perfect image of a dutiful daughter. She beckons him to the table with a cheerfulness that lands with the force of a physical blow. The fish is grilled perfectly, the soup is steaming, and the internal voice in Kouta's head is screaming. Today's breakfast, made by Kotomi-chan, is delicious as always. They sit together, a nutritious, well-balanced unit. His parents chat about school and clubs, their voices light and encouraging. It's the kind of morning people wish for, a peaceful tableau of domestic bliss. But Kouta looks at his reflection in the water glass and sees the only smudge on the lens. He thinks to himself that this scene would be absolutely perfect if it weren't for him. The praise starts flowing toward Kotomi, but the moment his mother realizes she's leaving Kouta in the dark, she panics. She reaches out, her hand hovering near his shoulder, a desperate apology already forming on her lips. She tries to walk back the compliment, insisting she isn't comparing him to his stepsister. Kouta just looks down at his plate, the fake smile already glued into place. "Yeah, I know." He puts on a show, laughing it off and telling Kotomi she'll be great at whatever she does. It's a performance that drains every ounce of his energy. He stands up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor like a signal flare. He needs air. He needs distance. He offers a quick thanks for the meal and heads for the door, leaving the perfect family to their breakfast as he escapes into the morning. School is a blur, a series of hallways he navigates as a ghost. But as the sun dips, he finds himself back at the family restaurant, his true home. He slides into the booth, and there she is. No expectations, no curated perfection, just Kazemiya leaning on her palm with a smile that actually reaches her eyes. She says the two words that his real house couldn't make feel honest: welcome back. They fall into their rhythm at the drink bar. She goes for the melon soda, noting that he always picks the same thing. But when she asks why he isn't having coffee, the truth tastes bitter. Coffee is what his mother offers when she's trying too hard. It's the scent of the living room he just escaped. He looks out at the city lights, the admission simple and heavy. Coffee makes him feel like he's at home, so he doesn't drink it much. She doesn't press. She doesn't offer a sympathetic hand or a curated smile. Instead, she gives him the one thing he actually needs: space. She leans back, her blonde hair catching the overhead light, and admits that his lack of curiosity is a relief. Honestly, that part of you, Narumi, where you don't pry too far, it really makes it easy for me. She challenges him to vent if he has complaints, her gaze steady and expectant. The dam breaks, but it's not a sob. It's a groan of pure frustration. She's tired of the idle life at school. She tells him about Sawada, the class reunion organizer who won't stop pestering her for her contact info. To the rest of the school, he's just a classmate reaching out. To her, he's another person trying to grab a piece of a girl they don't even know. She looks at Kouta, her face scrunched in a scowl that he finds infinitely more beautiful than her school persona mask. She punctuates her rant with a joke that's as dry as the desert. The only thing I have in common with him is that we both have limbs and can move. It's absurd and it's perfect. Kouta can't help the laugh that bubbles up. The heavy atmosphere of his own morning evaporates, replaced by the warmth of a shared secret. He watches her laugh, feeling a physical sigh of relief settle into his bones. Dinner arrives in a cloud of steam, and Kouta automatically clasps his hands together. It's a habit he doesn't think about, a quiet ritual of gratitude. Kazemiya watches him, her expression softening into something uncharacteristically gentle. She notes how he always says "let's eat" and "thank you" properly. "I think it's polite and nice," she says, and for once, the compliment doesn't feel like a weight, it feels like a warm hand on his. He admits the reason behind the manners is a defense mechanism. Growing up in a single-parent family made him terrified of being seen as ill-bred, but before the moment can deepen, his pocket screams. The screen displays Mom, and the peaceful sanctuary of the booth instantly feels like it's being breached. He asks Kazemiya for a moment, his hand already trembling as he reaches for the phone. His mother's voice is a sharp spike in his ear, asking where he is and if he stopped somewhere again. She brings up the morning, her guilt manifesting as a series of invasive questions. Kouta sinks into the booth, his voice dropping into the flat, obedient tone he uses at the breakfast table. He tells her he's on his way back from work, a lie he's told 100 times. But today it feels heavier, with Kazemiya sitting right in front of him. In a moment of desperation, he tells his mother he's walking a female friend home. The silence on the other end is deafening, followed by a voice that drips with pity. "You don't have any female friends, do you? You don't need to lie, it's a gut punch delivered with love." Kazemiya watches his face crumble, her eyes narrowing as she realizes exactly what kind of cage he's living in. She reaches out, her fingers snapping toward the phone. Before he can even process the humiliation, Kazemiya is in his space, her eyes daring him to let her help. He hands over the phone, stunned. She doesn't hesitate. She flips the switch from frustrated teenager to the charming, perfect classmate in a heartbeat. She holds the phone to her ear, her voice sparkling with a warmth that completely disarms the woman on the other end. "Hello? I'm taking over the call. This is Kazemiya, Narumi-kun's classmate." She weaves a perfect story, mentioning how he walked her home yesterday and how she's borrowing him again today. It's seamless. When she hands the phone back, his mother's voice has completely changed. She's stammering, apologizing for doubting him, and asking when on earth he made a friend. Kouta can only stare at the table, his world tilting on its axis as Kazemiya watches him with a satisfied, secret smile. The call ends with a click that echoes in the silence. Kouta manages a stuttered thank you, realizing she didn't just save his hide, she validated his existence to his own family. But she doesn't treat it like a favor. She leans her chin on her hand, her eyes softening as she looks at him. "Hearing that helps me too," she whispers. It turns out, venting about home problems is a two-way street, and they're both finally finding the exit. They walk home under a canopy of stars, the air between them lighter than it's ever been. Kouta brings up the movie she recommended, his voice a bit shaky but eager. He watched it already, and the confession makes Kazemiya's heart skip a beat, or maybe two. She stops in her tracks, her twin tails swaying as she turns to him, her eyes wide and hungry for his opinion. She wants to know if he liked the world she shared with him. The introvert disappears, replaced by a fanboy. Kouta starts describing the action, the intensity of the story, and the way the cat characters Torai and Torefu handled the enemy executives. He's gesturing with his hands now, his eyes bright as he recounts the shonen manga levels of intensity. He isn't worrying about his manners or his home life. He's just a kid talking about something he loves to a girl who's actually listening. He hits the climax of the story, describing the moment Torefu finally stands up and makes his choice. Before he can even finish, Kazemiya is finishing the sentence for him, her voice loud and full of genuine excitement. "I get it! That's my favorite part too!" They're standing on a suburban street, shouting about a cat movie late at night, and for the first time in months, neither of them feels out of place. The energy settles into a warm hum. She admits that she shouted out loud when she saw the foreshadowing herself. She looks at Kouta, her smile softer now, more intimate. Talking about movie impressions is fun. I've never really felt like I wanted to share with someone before. It's a confession of loneliness that mirrors his own, a bridge built out of celluloid and late-night walks. Kouta remembers something, an advance ticket he got for that basketball movie everyone's been talking about. He hesitates, the ghost of his social anxiety flickering, then pushes through. He asks her if she'd like to go together. It's a direct hit. Kazemiya's eyes go wide, the request hanging in the air between them like a promise of a future that exists outside of their restaurant sanctuary. She doesn't even have to think about it. "I'll go," she says, her face lighting up with a radiance that makes the street lamps look dim. Kouta feels a weight lift. The thought of going home and being grilled by his mother is still there, but it's manageable now. Being at home feels like suffocation, but standing here with a ticket in his hand and a yes on her lips, he can finally breathe. She holds the ticket to her face, her eyes peeking over the edge, shimmering with an anticipation she doesn't bother to hide. This isn't the distant idol or the frustrated escapee. It's a girl who's found a reason to look past tomorrow. She catches his gaze and delivers the final blow to his heart, looking forward to it. She's not done yet. She wants more recommendations, more of the world he sees. She asks about his hobbies, and when he mentions gaming with a shy shrug, she jumps on it instantly. "Then recommend me a game. I'll buy it too." She's diving headfirst into his life, grabbing onto every thread he offers as if she's afraid to let the connection go slack. He realizes then that sharing what you like is the most honest thing you can do for someone. It's better than any curated, normal family routine. But as he watches her, he remembers the rumors his sister mentioned, the pale girl, the chatter in the hallways, the side of Kazemiya that the world hasn't seen yet. He's seeing a side of her no one else has, and it makes him wonder just how deep does her hidden side go. The neon hum of the city fades out the moment he slides into the booth. Here, Kazemiya Kohaku isn't the distant school idol, or the ice queen everyone whispers about. She's just a girl with her chin in her hand, watching him with a shimmering curiosity that makes everything else feel like background noise. In this tiny, four-person sanctuary, the outsider finally stopped looking in through the glass. He's already home. The morning light hits the breakfast table, but for once the air doesn't feel heavy. Usually this room is a minefield of awkward silence, but Kotomi is leaning in with eyes like searchlights. She drops the bomb before the rice is even cold. "So, about Kazemiya, what's your relationship with her?" Rumors are like static, always there, always annoying, but usually easy to ignore until they start naming names. Kouta wants to keep this bubble from bursting, but the whispers at school are starting to grow teeth. Everyone has a version of the truth they tell others, a carefully curated mask to hide the family circumstances that are too heavy to carry alone. Today, the shadow of her reputation is finally catching up to their secret hideout. Narumi tries to play it cool, mentioning a movie date like he isn't vibrating with nerves. Even his stepfather, Akihiro, is getting in on it, offering up date money with a grin that makes Narumi flush. He realizes with a start that the dining table, which used to feel so uncomfortable, has become a lot cozier, and he has Kazemiya to thank for it. In the back of his mind, he's bowing to Kazemiya for this newfound peace. Kotomi, the school's perfect idol, just smiles and tells them she'd rather spend time with her family. It's a nice sentiment, but it's the kind of perfection that usually makes Narumi drift like a ghost through his own house. The cozy mood shifts the second the name Kazemiya is analyzed. Kotomi's voice drops, bringing up the whispers that haunt the first years. She warns him that people might think Kazemiya is a delinquent, and Narumi can't help the heavy gulp that catches in his throat. The fear hits him like a physical weight. If his parents hear those rumors, his secret sanctuary is over. To them, she's a beautiful senior, a celebrity, someone out of his league. He shoves the rest of his meal down, desperate to escape the conversation before it ruins everything. He catches Kotomi before they head out, thanking her for not speaking ill of Kazemiya despite the talk. When she asks if the rumors are true, he doesn't hesitate for a second. No, it's nonsense. For a moment, watching them laugh together, he finally knows what it feels like to be part of a normal family. Kotomi just smirks, granting him her blessing to be friends with whoever he chooses. She even tosses out a playful punchline to break the tension. That's a bonus 20 sister-in-law points for me. The next day, the school chatter is louder than ever, and those fake rumors are already infecting the first years. Then the teacher drops the news. Kazemiya isn't in class. She's resting in the infirmary. Narumi's heart does a slow roll in his chest as he wonders if she's actually okay. He finds her tucked away in the quiet of the infirmary, and the sight of her makes his stomach knot. She looks pale, her usual spark dimmed as she lets out a heavy sigh. She really doesn't look well at all. He notices the dark circles under her eyes. And for a terrifying second, those rumors about her hanging with bad guys flash through his mind. His heart gives a violent thump against his ribs, the fear of the unknown crashing into his trust. He finally cracks and asks, "Are those rumors true?" The tension snaps instantly. She isn't out with delinquents, she was just up all night binging. She leans in with a look of pure nerd joy and shouts, "The manga was so interesting." Narumi just stands there, feeling like a complete idiot for ever doubting her. She's crying over a fictional character wanting to play basketball, her eyes sparkling with a passion that's entirely innocent. Narumi can't help but exhale. It's such a relief to know she's just herself, even if she did stay up until dawn like a disaster. Even with the exhaustion weighing her down, she's not done. She looks up at him with those big, hopeful eyes and asks, "Hey, can I keep talking about it?" He can't help but smile. Her energy is as surprising as it is contagious. A massive yawn escapes her, but when he suggests she head home to sleep, she shakes her head. She looks down at her cup, her voice dropping to a soft, vulnerable murmur, "I still want to talk with you, Narumi." Narumi knows he has to be the adult here. He gently tells her to take a nap right where she is, so she doesn't collapse before their big movie date. She finally gives in, closing her eyes with a sleepy, trusting smile and a quiet, "Good night." Sitting there in the quiet, watching her peaceful face, he realizes he's been a total fool for believing the hallway whispers. She isn't a delinquent or some mysterious rebel. Kazemiya is just a pure-hearted girl who loves what she loves, and as he looks at her, all he can think is how incredibly cute she is. Then comes the day he's been waiting for and dreading. The station is crowded, but she stands out like a beacon. She walks up with a smile that could stop traffic, apologizing for the wait as Narumi's brain practically short-circuits. The train is a sea of bodies, forcing them into a space far smaller than they're used to. Every rattle of the tracks feels like it's pushing them together. He's staring straight ahead, his skin prickling with the awareness of just how close she is. A sudden lurch of the train sends the crowd shifting. He looks down and realizes she's taller than he thought, her face just inches from his. Then the inevitable happens, a solid bump as the world tilts and she's pressed right against him. He practically leaps out of his skin, his hands hovering awkwardly as he stammers out a "so sorry," while her eyes go wide with the same sudden electric jolt of proximity. The roar of the train fades into the background, leaving only the heat between them. She leans back slightly, her cheeks flushed as she whispers, "Thanks for catching me." He wonders how a simple movie date turned into something that feels this significant, but little by little. The distance between them closes. The city lights and the crowd are just a blur now. Everything is narrowed down to this one person, and the way the world feels different whenever she's standing in it. The credits roll and the lights come up, but the adrenaline from that last scene is still buzzing between them. Kohaku looks like she's glowing, her eyes wide and sparkling in a way that makes Narumi's heart do a nervous little somersault. She lets out a breath she's been holding since the climax. That was amazing. After school, under the hum of the family restaurant lights, the world feels smaller, safer. It's just them, a shared booth, and a connection that's starting to look a lot less like an alliance and a lot more like a reason to stay out late. They dive into the post-movie autopsy, the kind of easy chatter where you finish each other's sentences about buzzer beaters and plot twists. For a second, the heavy stuff, the families, the rumors, the isolation, it all just vanishes. It's just two teenagers laughing over a story that wasn't their own. The sizzle of the hamburger steak is the soundtrack to a sudden shift in tone. Kohaku stares at the plate like it's a miracle, admitting that when she was a kid, a simple meal like this was strictly off-limits. Her childhood was a list of rules, and this restaurant is the first place she's ever felt allowed to just enjoy things. The freedom she has now isn't a gift, it's a byproduct of neglect. She picks at her food, her tone sinking into that quiet, hollow space where the truth lives. She isn't being trusted to stay out late, she's being ignored. Mom doesn't care about me anymore. Maybe because of that, she's completely abandoned me. Hearing her say she's envious of his stressful family life is a gut punch. Narumi realizes they're both just running from different kinds of storms. He doesn't offer a lecture or a fix. He just offers a seat at the table. They're here to share the weight, not to solve the impossible. He watches her, his gaze steady and surprisingly warm. He tells her not to worry about it, his simple acceptance acting like a bridge over her loneliness. She looks up, her eyes softening as she breathes out a small, genuine thanks. The peace is brittle. Kohaku mentions the rumors, the toxic whispers that trail her through the hallways of both the second and first-year buildings. She's used to shutting it all down, but seeing Narumi's reaction makes the weight of that reputation feel heavier than ever. She meets Narumi's gaze with a terrifying kind of resignation, her eyes searching his for a sign of judgment. She's giving him an out, an escape from the social suicide of being her friend. It's fine if you want to end our alliance. It would probably be better for you, Narumi. Narumi doesn't argue, he just reaches across the table and steals a bite of her hamburger. It's such a mundane, ridiculous response to her emotional crisis that it catches her completely off guard. He looks her dead in the eye, his mouth still full, and delivers the only verdict that matters. Kazemiya isn't the kind of person the rumors say she is. That's what I think. He's actually getting angry now, his face flushing with a protective heat she's never seen directed at her before. He scoffs at the pointlessness of the rumors, his logic simple and undeniable. Someone who's truly bad wouldn't make such a fuss over a single bite of hamburger. It's because they're bad-mouthing my friend. That word friend hits her like a physical shock. Her heart thumps against her ribs, loud enough that she's sure he can hear it over the restaurant noise. She hides her face behind her hand, her cheeks burning as the reality of being defended sinks in. It's embarrassing, but I'm happy. Now it's Narumi's turn to panic. He didn't mean to be that smooth, and seeing her look at him with such soft, wide eyes is almost too much to handle. He scrambles for a distraction, ordering a parfait to bury the tension under a mountain of whipped cream and strawberries. The night winds down as the clock on the wall ticks toward the inevitable. The fun of the date is being replaced by the looming shadow of finals. For Narumi, it's not just about grades, it's about the suffocating pressure of living with a sister who is so perfect. Any failure on his part makes the air at home unbreathable. But Kohaku isn't about to let the date end with a whimper. She closes the distance between them, her eyes lighting up with a new plan. If they can't hang out, they'll study. It's the perfect excuse to keep this bubble from popping. She flashes him a mischievous, triumphant grin. It's settled then. They talk about Kotomi, the girl who gave the entrance ceremony speech, the golden child of the school. Kohaku remembers her well. Everyone does. It makes Narumi feel like an even smaller shadow in his own house. He used to try and keep up, but eventually, he just stopped running. He admits to her that he ran away from the competition, from the expectations, from the family that doesn't quite fit anymore. Instead of judgment, Kohaku offers a look of pure solidarity. She knows that sometimes running away is the only way to survive. Isn't it fine to run away? He looks at her, and the realization hits him with the force of a tidal wave. All the isolation, the quiet nights at the restaurant, the feeling of being a failure, it all led him here, to this booth, with this person. I ran away from my family, but in doing so I became friends with you, Kazemiya. She looks away, her blush deepening as she echoes his sentiment. For the first time, The guilt of hiding away starts to fade, replaced by the strange, wonderful feeling that they made the right choice. But the clock doesn't care about emotional breakthroughs. It's almost 10, time to go back to the real world. The walk home is quiet, the city lights reflecting in the puddles as they linger in the cool night air. Narumi's brain is on a loop, replaying everything he said back at the restaurant and cringing at his own forwardness. But Kohaku is still smiling, telling him she's looking forward to their study session. The alliance is evolving and neither of them is ready for it to end. He watches her turn toward her gate, a sense of accomplishment warming his chest. He's going to do his best, he's going to make this work. But then, a voice cuts through the night like a shard of glass. A cold, sharp voice that freezes the air in their lungs. Kohaku, where exactly have you been walking this late at night? Kohaku stops dead. The warmth of the night vanishes instantly, giving way to a suffocating pressure. Standing there, her gaze sharp enough to draw blood, is the woman she's been trying so hard to avoid. The neglect has just been replaced by a terrifying presence. Mom. The city skyline looms like a cage. The warmth of the night vanishes instantly under the shadow of a woman who carries her presence like a weapon. Kohaku stops dead, her voice barely a whisper as she faces the one person she was trying to outrun. Her mother doesn't even look at the boy standing beside her, she just fixes her gaze on her daughter and delivers the cold verdict. Out walking this late again, huh? The sidewalk beneath their feet feels 1,000 miles long. For Kohaku, this isn't just a confrontation, it's a regression to a childhood spent in the shadow of a trophy. She remembers the grip of her fingers on her skirt, the crushing weight of always being second place. No matter how hard she ran, she was just the runner-up to her sister's spotlight. The stage lights of her memory are blinding, but the words that follow are darker. Her mother's disappointment isn't loud, it's a quiet, surgical removal of hope. Kohaku stammers an apology, a promise to do better, but the reply cuts the air out of her lungs. I don't expect anything from you anymore. That was the sound of a heart finally fracturing. Deep down, she already knew the truth. In her mother's eyes, she was just a blurry background character in her sister's story. She wasn't a daughter, she was a failure to launch. Back in the present, Kouta tries to step into the line of fire, offering a clumsy apology for the lateness. He's trying to be a shield, but the woman barely acknowledges he exists. Her profile is sharp and unyielding as glass. She dismisses his concern as trivial before turning her icy glare back on her daughter. Kohaku can only flinch as the silence grows teeth. Her mother doesn't even use a raised voice to draw blood. She simply notes the misery on Kohaku's face and calls it unsightly. The woman turns her back, walking away with a casual cruelty that leaves them both shivering. Kouta reaches out, his voice cracking the heavy air, but Kohaku won't look at him. She can't. His eyes follow her as she leaves, the rhythm of her footsteps sounding like a door slamming in slow motion. He understands that look perfectly because he wears it too, the shame of being found wanting by the people who were supposed to love you first. This was the side of her she never wanted him to see, and now it's all he can think about. Walking through his own front door feels like stepping into a different world. He's greeted by warmth, light, and a chorus of welcome backs that should make him happy. Instead, it carries a heavy burden. He stands there, a boy with a functional family, drowning in the realization of how fortunate he is, and how much it must hurt to be her. Even as his sister Kotomi playfully teases him, his mind is still miles away at a cold iron gate. She's proposing something for tomorrow, a rare Friday where the whole family is actually free. It's the kind of invitation he's supposed to value above all else, but for the first time, his internal rules are coming into conflict with a new, urgent priority. Kotomi is radiant as she talks about everyone being home early. She wants the whole family together, a rare moment of unity in their busy lives. Kouta usually stays in his room on Fridays to stay out of the way. But now, the invitation to belong takes on the quality of a snare. He agrees to the dinner, telling himself that valuing family is the right thing to do. He sends a quick text to Kohaku, letting her know he won't make it to the diner tomorrow. Across town, Kohaku lies in the dark, her phone illuminating a room that feels far too large. Her response is short, a quiet "got it" that echoes the silence of her house. The next day at school, the mask is back. Kohaku moves through the hallways with her usual grace, acting as if the previous night's humiliation was just a dream. She's doing everything as usual, But Kouta can't stop looking for the cracks. When friends invite them to a class gathering, she brushes it off with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She delivers the lie with perfect composure. "I'm spending time with my family today." Kouta watches her, the words tasting like ash. He remembers the cold woman at the gate and the unsightly comment. He knows exactly what kind of family time she's heading toward, and the thought makes his chest tighten. He tries to convince himself to stay out of it. He's not the type to meddle, and he has a family who actually wants him home. He tells himself he can listen to her some other day, that she'll be fine. But as he looks at her profile in the classroom, the lie starts to fall apart. Home again. The lights are on. The air smells like a meal being prepared, and the welcome is sincere. His stepfather and mother are there, smiling, a picture of domestic peace. They tell him to relax. That dinner is almost ready. It's everything he's supposed to want, but the house feels suffocatingly quiet. The table is full. Kotomi is chattering about cookies and movies, the very definition of an ordinary happy life. Kouta looks at his plate, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. He's fortunate, he's safe, and because of that, sitting here while she's out there alone seems like a total abandonment. He stares into his drink, replaying the way Kohaku's mother looked at her, as if she were a chore, an inconvenience. Would a parent like that really make time for their child? Would they ever look at them with anything but ice? He knows the answer. He knows where Kohaku is right now, and it isn't at home. He can't take it anymore. The chair scrapes, he mumbles a jagged sorry, and before his family can even process the shock, the front door slams shut. He knows he should treasure this time, but he can't breathe. He fumbles with his phone, his fingers flying across the screen as he sends a desperate text. "I'm coming now." He hits the diner doors out of breath, lungs burning and skin slick with sweat. He's a mess, but he's there. Kohaku looks up from her table, her eyes wide with a shock that quickly melts into something else. She was spending the night alone, just as he feared. She stares at the boy who just sprinted across town for her and can only whisper, "You really came." He doesn't have a grand speech, just the truth of their connection. He reminds her of the pact they made to vent, to listen, to be the one place where they don't have to lie. We made a pact to vent and listen to each other's complaints, didn't we? The air between them is thick with everything they aren't saying. Kohaku is flustered, her head spinning as she tries to process the fact that he actually chose her over his family. He tries to break the tension by ordering a drink, but she stops him with a small, shaky motion. She's already taken care of it. Out of habit, or maybe out of a hope she didn't want to admit, she had already ordered 2 drinks. She laughs it off, saying it's an all-you-can-drink place anyway, so it doesn't matter, but the look on her face is different now. The coldness of the previous night is finally starting to thaw. "I feel better now, thanks, Narumi." He catches her grin, knowing that his guess was right. That nagging her mother gave her was the weight he had to lift. He's always been the type to stay in his own lane, to never interfere with others. But when it comes to Kazemiya, all his old rules are starting to look like suggestions he's more than happy to break. They hatch a plan, a fake study session to explain his sudden disappearance to his family. It's a small lie, a shared secret that binds them even closer. They raise their glasses in the empty diner, the ice clinking like a promise. Cheers. The night is cool again as they part ways at the station. A simple wave, a good night, and he's gone. But Kohaku stands there for a long moment, watching his retreating back. The world feels a little less cold than it did an hour ago. Kouta's walk home is quiet. He knows going back to his family after that stunt will be awkward, but he doesn't regret a single step. He saw her smile again, and for him, that makes every uncomfortable conversation ahead worth it. He never wants to see that broken look on her face ever again. Back in her room, Kohaku collapses onto her bed, her heart still racing. She's overwhelmed, a messy tangle of confusion and joy. Choosing a friend over family is something she thought was unthinkable, especially for someone as reserved as Narumi. She buries her face in her pillow, letting out a muffled scream. "Why did you have to come?" She replays the image of him drenched in sweat, gasping for air just to see her. He isn't the type to meddle, yet there he was, being as desperate as an idiot. She was so happy she didn't know what to do, and now she has no idea how she's supposed to face him next time. She's always been troubled by her family, but this is different. This is a problem she actually wants to have. She stares at the ceiling, her face burning, as she delivers the final verdict on the boy who changed her night. Narumi, you idiot. The peaceful days continue, slipping back into the rhythm of school life. But there's a new buzz in the air, the upcoming student council elections. Most people think they know who's going to win, but Kouta's friend Natsuki suggests there might be a surprise upset. And right on cue, the devil herself appears. Raymond Shiori, the front-runner for the presidency, and a girl who seems to see everything. As she passes, Kouta feels her eyes linger on him for just a second too long. Little by little, the quiet status quo of their secret alliance is starting to shift. Change is coming, whether they're ready for it or not. Back in our sanctuary, the world outside just disappears. There's Kazemiya, headphones down, chin resting on her hand, looking at me with a gaze that says she knows exactly how much I sacrificed to be here tonight. We're safe for now, tucked away in this neon-lit booth, but the air feels different. There's a weight to the silence, the heavy, quiet shift before the storm of the new school term hits us full force. The school is buzzing, but the noise doesn't reach their corner. Raymond Shiori stands there, the new face of authority, having swept the election with overwhelming support. She looks like the perfect student council president, calm and untouchable, while the rest of us are just trying to survive the week. To the teachers, she's the golden child, intelligent, beautiful, and trusted. To everyone else, she's a force of nature. But Natsuki just leans back, totally unimpressed by the spectacle. He fixes his gaze on the ceiling and lets out a long, dramatic sigh. The new student council president was exactly who we expected. Boring. Natsuki's got a nose for trouble, and he's starting to smell it on Narumi. He's noticed the way the ice queen Kazemiya has been softening up lately, even cracking the occasional smile. Narumi tries to play it cool, but Natsuki's already mentally prepping for a disaster. He grins, leaning in with a look that says he's about to jinx everything. Maybe it's a sign of impending trouble. While the school talks, Narumi has a different kind of pressure to deal with. He's been trading family dinners for late nights at the restaurant, turning their sanctuary into a study hall. He looks up to find Kazemiya already there, her usual guard completely gone. She gives him a smile so bright it actually hurts a little bit. She's not just there for the company, she's actually a killer tutor. She leans over the notebook, pointing out the messy math where Narumi's brain checked out. When he finally gets the answer, her face lights up like he just won a gold medal. It's a simple not bad, but the pride in her voice is heavier than any grade. Narumi's surprised she's this good at teaching, but the real shocker comes when he asks about her own social circle. He half expects her to say she's a lone wolf, but her eyes go sharp and serious. Raymond Shiori, the perfect president, isn't just a name to her. She's been Kazemiya's friend since middle school. You of all people has friends? Narumi asks, and she offers him a firm, "Of course I do." She used to study just to keep up with her sister, a pointless habit born out of a need to be seen. But now, that old stress has turned into something useful. She takes a slow sip of her drink, looking right at him over the rim of the glass. The reason she's glad she stuck with it? Because I get to help you study, Narumi. Her praise hits a raw nerve. Narumi spent his whole life being measured by a father who only cared about superiority. He remembers the cold weight of those middle school exams, the feeling that no matter how hard he worked, his success was just the bare minimum. To his father, the acceptance letter was just a piece of paper that proved he hadn't failed, yet. The voice of his father still echoes. "How many times are you going to disappoint me?" It's a ghost that follows him everywhere, a reminder that his best was never enough. He finishes the story, feeling the old cracks in his confidence starting to show. "That broke me," he admits. But Kazemiya doesn't look away. She reaches out, her voice steady and gentle. "Narumi, give me your hand." She takes his hand in hers, the warmth of her palm grounding him in the present. With a pen and a look of absolute concentration, she draws a simple, perfect flower right on his skin. It's a childish gesture, but it carries more weight than any diploma. She looks up, her eyes soft and honest. "You did a great job." He stares at the ink on his palm, the lines slightly blurred, but the meaning crystal clear. It's the reward he's been waiting for since he was a kid. For the first time, the heavy knot of disappointment in his chest starts to loosen. These were the words he's been starving for, and she gave them to him without even being asked. The emotional dam breaks, and Narumi's eyes start to sting. Kazemiya catches it instantly, her teasing side coming back to save him from the awkwardness. She laughs, her voice light and bubbly, as she points out his red face. "Come on, Narumi, no time for tears, we need to study." The actual finals are almost an afterthought, with Sensei Kazemiya's voice in his head. The questions don't look like monsters anymore. They finish the last paper, the scratching of pens finally dying down. Narumi looks over at her, both of them drained but satisfied. The war is over, and the summer is waiting. Summer vacation officially starts tomorrow, but they're getting a head start on the fun. Kazemiya's been vibrating with excitement ever since they promised to hit the batting cages. Standing there in the bright lights of the park, she looks less like a celebrity and more like a kid who just got the keys to the candy store. Narumi can't help but notice she looks truly happy. She scans the rack like she's picking out a weapon for battle. The test stress has been building up, and she's ready to let it all out on a defenseless baseball. She grabs a bat, a fierce glint in her eye. The test is over, so I'm gonna hit these like crazy. The machine spits out the first ball, and Kazemiya swings with enough force to generate a small hurricane. Problem is, she misses by a mile again. And again. The strike announcement is the only sound in the cage besides her frustrated grunts. She's swinging for the fences and hitting nothing but air, her ears turning pink with every miss. Persistence finally pays off. There's a sharp crack and the ball sails into the net. Kazemiya spins around, her face flushed and beaming, pointing at the cage like she just hit a walk-off home run. I hit it, Narumi. Did you see that? She hands him the bat with a challenge in her eyes. Next is your turn. Narumi steps up, the weight of the bat feeling strange in his hands. His brain starts digging through old memories, bits and pieces of advice his dad shouted at him years ago. Weight shift, level swing, keep your eyes on the ball. He's trying to ignore the source of the info and just focus on the movement. He takes a breath, winds up, and swings. It's a total disaster. He couldn't hit a single one, even with his dad's voice playing on a loop in his head. He slumps onto the bench, the physical drain finally catching up to him. But then a cold bottle of tea is pressed against his cheek. Kazemiya is there, leaning in with a look of quiet amusement. Here, she says, offering a little bit of comfort for his bruised ego. They sit together, the post-exercise high making the conversation come easy. Narumi asks why she doesn't just get a part-time job if she's bored. But the answer is a familiar wall of family rules. Her parents won't let her work or join clubs. They're terrified she'll do something to tarnish her sister's reputation. To them, her only job is to be invisible and perfect. She looks down at her hands, her voice dropping to a whisper. It's not just the rules, it's the lack of expectation. Her mother has already given up on her, treating her like a placeholder in her own life. In her mother's eyes, she's not a person, she's just a risk. To Mom, I'm just a kid who can't do anything. Narumi's heart twists. He looks at his own hand, thinking about the flower she drew there. She says she can't do anything, but she's the one who saved him from his own head. He stares at her, the realization hitting him hard. She gives him everything, and yet she thinks she has nothing to offer. He needs to fix that. He watches her drink her tea, acting cheerful while carrying the weight of those awful rumors and her parents' neglect. She bears it all alone, never letting the mask slip for anyone else. He can't stand the thought of her being that lonely again. He wants to be the one thing in her life that she doesn't have to carry on her own. To break the heavy mood, he starts listing off things for the summer: pools, festivals, amusement parks, the works. Kazemiya's eyes go wide, her hands coming up as she starts mentally adding to the list. For the first time in years, she's actually excited for a break. She laughs, her face glowing. Hey, I'm starting to get excited for summer break. Narumi watches her, and something final clicks into place. They've spent all this time careful not to step into each other's private spaces, respecting the boundaries of their secret alliance. But that's not enough anymore. He picks up the bat, his grip tight and certain. Kazemiya, I've made up my mind about something. He turns to her, his voice loud enough to cut through the noise of the machines. He's putting it all on the line, stepping out of the shadows for her sake. It's not just about study sessions anymore, it's a promise of protection. If you ever need help, I'll be there for you with everything I've got. He doesn't know how he's going to do it, he's just a high school kid with his own mess of a life. But he swings the bat with every ounce of frustration and hope he has left. The crack of the ball is like a period at the end of a sentence. Even if he's unreliable, he's not going anywhere. He stares her down, ignoring the world outside the cage. He doesn't care about the rumors or what people think they know about her. He only cares about the girl standing in front of him. Even if the whole world speaks ill of you, I will always be on your side. Kazemiya Kohaku. She gives him a smile that makes the whole world feel small. She laughs a little bit, her eyes damp, teasing him for being so dramatic. But the whole world is a bit much, she says. Narumi doesn't care. He watches her, his chest tight. He never wants to see her look sad again. He's going to be her strength, no matter what it takes. They walk together under the evening sky, the air cooling down. They start planning a stamp rally for their favorite restaurant chain. A perfect excuse to get away from their homes and just be themselves. The idea of an overnight trip hangs in the air, a daring step towards something real. Let's make this a fun summer vacation, Kazemiya says, her voice full of hope. It's so peaceful it almost feels fake. Narumi watches her go, his mind full of the promise he just made. He wants this calm, quiet time to last forever. She waves, her blonde hair catching the streetlights, her smile wide and genuine. See you tomorrow, they both say, a simple promise that feels like a solid foundation. He makes it back to his own world, the quiet of the house, a stark contrast to the batting cages. But then, the rain starts, a steady, rhythmic drip that turns into a downpour. He looks out the window, his plans for tomorrow suddenly feeling fragile. Just my luck, he mutters, watching the storm roll in. His phone buzzes, and the world stops. It's a text from Kazemiya, but it isn't a goodnight or a joke about the rain. It's a desperate typed-out plea for help. Narumi, I'm outside alone, right now. Please help. His heart starts pounding against his ribs as he realizes Natsuki's prediction came true. The piece is officially over. He tears the door open and freezes. Standing there in the rain, soaked to the bone and shivering, is Kazemiya. She's not wearing her uniform or her headphones. She looks small, scared, and completely broken. She looks up at him, her voice barely a whisper against the thunder. I ran away from home. The rain is deafening, but her voice cuts through it like a jagged blade. She's standing there, a person who usually commands every room she enters, looking like a discarded doll in a saturated t-shirt. She doesn't look at his eyes at first, she looks at the floor, the water pooling around her feet as she delivers the line that changes everything. I ran away from home. Rewind a few hours and the world was still dry but just as cold. In that high-rise apartment, Kohaku wasn't a person. She was a variable to be managed, so she didn't interfere with her sister's success. When she tries to push back, to claim even a sliver of her own summer break, she's met with a wall of absolute indifference. Her mother doesn't even look at her when she lays down the law. No way. The air in the room turns sharp enough to draw blood. Kohaku is desperate. Her hands white-knuckled on her bag, screaming for a tiny bit of autonomy that her mother has no intention of granting. The response isn't a lecture or a punishment, it's a disposal. Her mother adjusts her glasses and drops the hammer. Then get out of this house right now. One door slams, and the rest of the world follows suit. The sky opens up as if on cue, drowning the city in a gray, rhythmic static that matches the hollowness in her chest. She had a plan, a hope for a summer that felt like hers, and now she's just another girl lost in the downpour. Everything she built, every secret smile she'd saved up, it all feels like it's washing away down the gutter. She's soaked to the bone, the cold seeping past her skin and into her spirit. But then, a voice echoes through the mental fog, Narumi's voice, steady and unbidden. He'd promised to be there, and in the middle of a literal storm, that's the only anchor she has left. If you ever need help from now on, Kazemiya, I'll do everything I can to support you. It's a gamble, a reach into the dark while her fingers are still shaking from the cold. She stares at the screen, the blue light reflecting in her wet eyes, wondering if it's even okay to be this selfish, to rely on him when her life is a disaster. She hits send, and for a terrifying minute, the rain is the only answer. Then the screen lights up with a map and a promise he's coming. He finds her under a dim streetlight, a small, shivering shape that breaks his heart before he even reaches her. He doesn't ask for explanations or a story. The wet clothes and the look in her eyes tell him everything he needs to know. He tilts the umbrella, pulling her into the small, dry circle of his world. Let's warm you up at my place for now. The warmth of the house hits them like a physical blow, a domestic peace that feels alien compared to the storm outside. His sister is there instantly, her worry shifting from where were you to who is this in a heartbeat. Kohaku shrinks into herself, the bravado of the school idol completely replaced by the vulnerability of someone who just wants to disappear. The silence in the hallway is heavy, punctuated only by the drip of water from Kohaku's hair. Kotomi takes one look at the situation and realizes this isn't the time for jokes or teasing. She takes charge with a pragmatism that surprises even Narumi, nudging the shivering guest toward the one thing she needs. For now, go take a bath. In the quiet of the living room, Kotomi watches her brother with a new kind of intensity. She's used to seeing him withdrawn, but this version of Narumi, the one who's vibrating with a quiet, protective anger, is someone she barely recognizes. He isn't thinking about the trouble this will cause. He's only thinking about the girl behind the bathroom door and how to keep her safe. His blood is boiling at the thought of a mother who could just throw her child out into a rainstorm like she's clearing out a closet. Kotomi sees it, the way his jaw is set, and she steps in to be the strategist for his raw emotion. She snaps her fingers, a sharp sound that breaks his spiraling thoughts. If you want to cheer up Kazemiya-senpai, you can leave it to me. He's banished to his room while the girls handle the aftermath, the familiar walls of his sanctuary feeling different with her on the other side. Every creak of the floorboards echoes like a countdown. Then, a soft knock, a hesitant voice, and the door opens just a crack to let in an apology he doesn't want to hear. The air in the room just flatlined. She's standing there in his clothes, a shirt that's miles too big for her, hanging off a shoulder and revealing just how small she really is without her armor. Her face is a deep, burning crimson, her eyes darting everywhere but his, as she tries to navigate the sheer absurdity of the moment. Just so you know, I'm wearing underwear properly. It's a classic sister move, leaving out a shirt that guarantees maximum awkwardness, but under the embarrassment something has shifted. The tension of the rainstorm has been replaced by a much more manageable kind of heat. Kohaku looks better, a little more color in her cheeks, and Narumi finds himself breathing again, even if his heart is still hammering against his ribs. The comedy fades as she sits on the edge of the bed, the reality of her situation settling back over her like a heavy blanket. She views herself as a burden, a mess that's been dumped on his doorstep, but he doesn't give her an inch of space to feel that way. He's right there, steady as always, giving her the only thing that matters right now. Don't worry about it. If you feel like talking, I'll listen. She thinks she's being a kid, running away from a life that doesn't fit, but Narumi isn't about to let her carry that shame alone. He looks at her, a small smile breaking through his usual stoicism, and admits that he's just as much of a kid as she is. It was their time at the restaurant that made his world lighter, and he's not about to let hers get heavy again. So what? I'm a kid too. The question of what now hangs in the air, a dark cloud that the room's warmth can't quite dispel. She doesn't have a plan, doesn't have a map for a future that doesn't include that suffocating apartment, but she knows one thing with absolute bone-deep certainty. Her eyes sharpen, the school idol's mask replaced by a survivor's steel. I don't know, but I don't want to go back to that house. She feels small, fragile, and utterly pathetic for dragging him into her domestic disaster. The thought of running far away is there, a childish fantasy of vanishing into the horizon, but the reality is always the same. Eventually, she'll have to go back and face the music. She's apologizing again, her voice breaking, until he cuts through her spiral with a single sharp word. Kazemiya. He doesn't hesitate, doesn't weigh the consequences or the logic of what he's about to say. He just looks at her, the most important person in his world, and offers the one thing she thought was impossible. The air in the room goes still as the words leave his mouth, a crazy, beautiful lifeline thrown into the middle of her despair. Wanna run away together? He's not joking, and he's not dreaming, he's dead serious about becoming her accomplice in this escape. He remembers the way she saved him, the way her praise felt like the first time he'd ever truly been seen. Now, it's his turn to be the one who stands in the way of the world for her. I want to see you smile, Kazemiya. I don't want to see you cry. She tries to give him an out, questioning if she's the one in the wrong, if she's lying to him just to get her way, but Narumi is past the point of being reasonable. He's already made his choice, and he's not looking back. He leans in, his gaze a physical weight that tells her he's not going anywhere. I don't care, didn't I say it? I'm on your side, Kazemiya Kohaku. The last of her defenses crumble, the rain finally stopping inside her heart as she looks at the boy who's willing to throw away his normal life just to give her a summer that belongs to her. She reaches out, her hand trembling as she accepts the craziest proposal she's ever heard, a single sentence that seals their fate together. Run away with me. The deal is struck in the quiet of his bedroom, their hands finding each other and gripping tight, a pact made of skin and shared secrets. She's crying again, but these aren't the jagged tears from the rain. They're the slow, warm release of someone who's finally found a place to land. She whispers his name like a prayer, over and over, until it ends in a single soft exhale. Thank you. He shifts into gear, his voice turning gentle but firm as he lays out the first steps of their rebellion. Tomorrow morning, before the world even wakes up, they'll be gone. He reaches out, his hand resting on her head with a tenderness that makes her breath hitch, grounding her in the reality of their plan. We're leaving on the first train tomorrow. She drifts off with the weight of his hand still lingering in her hair, the most profound sense of safety she's felt in years. Finally, the future isn't a threat, it's an escape, and she's not making the journey alone. The rain outside is just background noise now, powerless against the sanctuary they've built in this room. While Kohaku sleeps, the storm is just beginning in the high-rise. Kuon isn't the victim her mother expects. She's a hurricane in her own right, slamming doors and screaming questions that demand an answer. She doesn't hold back, her voice echoing through the cold, expensive rooms as she turns on the woman who started this fire. You psycho hag. The anger fades into something much darker and more twisted. Kuon looks at the empty room, at the headphones left behind, and she doesn't see a sister who's found freedom. She sees a bird that's escaped its cage. To her, Kohaku isn't a person with a will. She's a fragile angel that needs to be protected by being locked away from a world that will only hurt her. Her eyes aren't filled with worry. They're filled with a terrifying, suffocating kind of devotion. She's not just the successful older sister, she's the one who wants to be the only person in Kohaku's world, a love so warped it looks like a prison. As she stares into the camera, her smile is a chilling promise that this escape is far from over. My little angel. They've put miles between themselves and the storm, arriving at a quiet station where the air feels just a little thinner. Narumi watches her carefully, looking for the cracks in her resolve. But he's already burned the bridge back. He doesn't just have a plan, he has a clean conscience. I left a note for my family saying we're going on a trip together starting today. Back in the familiar glow of a generic booth, the weight on Kohaku's shoulders finally starts to lift. The world outside is a mess of expectations and cold high-rises. But in here, the only thing that matters is the menu and the person sitting across from her. Only when I'm in this place, I can forget everything. They caught the first train out like ghosts, and now Narumi is setting the stage for their survival. He's already bought a mountain of essentials, treating their flight like a mission rather than a tragedy. Kohaku watches him, her gratitude warring with the feeling that she's a burden, but Narumi just shrugs it off. He's got it covered. Every stitch of clothing and every logistical hurdle. The money is a bitter pill, child support payments meant to keep him at arm's length, a monthly reminder that his father would rather pay than be a parent. Narumi used to hate it, but now, that cold cash is the only thing keeping Kohaku safe. No matter what it takes, I want to help Kazemiya right now. She sees the resentment he carries for that money, the way it feels like being bought off. She doesn't want to be another person draining him, another obligation he's forced to meet. Her voice is a whisper of regret as she fixes her gaze on her clenched hands. That's why I'm sorry. Narumi doesn't see it as a burden, he sees it as a purpose. For the first time in his life, he has someone who actually needs him, and he's willing to empty every account he has to keep that look in her eyes. But reality is a sharp edge, they're just kids. Without parent consent forms, hotels are off limits unless they want a one-way trip to a police station. They have to stay mobile, moving under the radar of a world that thinks it knows what's best for them. Hotels are a trap, but a 24-hour restaurant? That's home turf. Narumi delivers the suggestion with the straightest of faces. So how about staying overnight in the family restaurant? It suits them perfectly, two refugees of domestic warfare hiding in plain sight. They'll kill time at an onsen nearby and then return to their sanctuary. Narumi smiles, a rare, genuine flash of warmth. I mean, we are the Family Restaurant Alliance. They talk about the stamp rally, a trivial game of collection, but the context has shifted. It's not about the prizes or the destination anymore. Narumi looks her right in the eye, dropping a line that makes the atmosphere inside the booth feel suddenly very heavy. Doing this together with you is the real prize. The embarrassment hits her like a physical wave. her face flaring a brilliant red as she tries to retract the moment. But Narumi is relentless. He's leaning into the sincerity, his voice steady even as his heart hammers. Words like that, of course, I'll remember them forever. He doesn't know the rules for this. He doesn't know if a friend is supposed to make your chest ache this much. All he knows is that he wants to spoil her, to wrap her in a world that doesn't hurt. He shakes off the tension with a nod. It's time to move. A hot spring is the next stop on their little rebellion. She insists on leading the way, putting on her strong face to prove she's not just a damsel in distress. Narumi watches her back, seeing the effort she's putting into every step. She's determined to be useful, to guide him through the maze of the city. I'm totally fine. I'm very strong. The map is a liar, and the street signs are nonsense. Kohaku is currently emitting a low-frequency groan of pure defeat while staring at her phone. Narumi offers to take over, but she's not ready to surrender yet. She needs this win, and Narumi is smart enough to let her have it. Let me at least handle this on my own. They finally make it to the steam and cedar of the bathhouse, a victory that feels bigger than it should. Narumi gives her a playful nudge as they head toward the separate entrances, seeing her bristling at his help. She catches his look instantly. You're treating me like a kid, aren't you? They stop at the threshold. Kohaku is fidgeting, her fingers twisting in the fabric of her top, a strange hesitation hanging in the humid air. Narumi misreads the silence, asking if she wanted a private room to be alone, but the look in her eyes says that's the furthest thing from her mind. She's not looking at the signs or the lockers. She's looking at him, her vulnerability laid bare in the soft lighting of the hallway. The words come out in a rush, a quiet admission that changes everything. I was just thinking if there was mixed bathing, I'd have liked to go in with you, Narumi. She catches him mid-heartbeat, her own face glowing brighter than the neon signs outside. Before he can even process the offer, she's already spinning away, her laughter a defensive shield against the sudden heat. Just kidding. She disappears behind the curtain, leaving Narumi alone with a racing pulse and a lot of steam. He's left clutching the back of his neck, trying to convince his heart to stay inside his chest. Seriously, that was bad for my heart? The hot water helps, but it doesn't drown out the magnitude of what he's done. He's technically a kidnapper or a runaway accomplice now, gambling their entire future on a single impulsive decision. But looking at the risks versus the alternative, he'd choose the family restaurant every single time. He knows this piece is fragile, a childish escape that might shatter the moment a police officer looks too closely at their booth. But for tonight, he wants to be her fortress. He just wants her to have a single night of sweet dreams, away from the screaming and the cold silence of her home. Across the wall, Kohaku is currently experiencing a full system meltdown. The mixed bathing comment is playing on a loop in her head, each repetition making the water feel 10 degrees hotter. She sinks below the surface, her voice a muffled cry of panic. What the heck am I saying? She hates being a source of trouble, hates the way she's dragging him into her disaster. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying. She's never relied on anyone in her entire life. Until him. And now, she can't imagine how she ever functioned alone. But with Narumi, I can't help it. She watches the rising steam, a quiet hope blooming in the middle of the chaos. She just wants him to be happy, to feel like this escape was worth the price he's paying. She dries off and steps out, the heat of the bath still clinging to her skin as she meets him in the lobby. The world follows them even here. On the lobby TV, Kwan is a goddess of light and talent, her latest video racking up millions of views in a single day. Kohaku watches her sister, her voice filled with a complicated mix of awe and distance. Her sister is a bundle of talent, a star that everyone wants to touch. She was there before the fame, the very first fan of the voice that now mesmerizes millions. Kohaku wonders what would happen if their worlds collided. Would Narumi be swept away like everyone else? Narumi met my sister. How would he react? Even Narumi can feel the impact of that voice. It's raw, powerful, and undeniable. But Kohaku knows the truth behind the polish. The talent wasn't a gift, it was a conquest. Her sister used to be terrible at singing, a fact that catches Narumi completely off guard. Kwan fought for every note, climbing to the top through sheer bloody-minded determination. She's a force of nature who refused to quit until the world listened. Kohaku looks away, the comparison tasting like ash in her mouth. She's nothing like me. She offers him a meeting, An autograph. A private performance from the biggest star in the country, the kind of chance people would kill for. But Narumi doesn't even hesitate. He's already looking at the only person he cares about. If I had time for that, I'd rather spend it with you, Kazemiya. He's relentless with the kindness, telling her that her voice is the one he actually wants to hear. It's too much. Kohaku feels like a thief, constantly taking his time, his money, and his affection without knowing how to give anything back. Taking so much it makes me hate myself. They killed time with movies, letting the fictional drama distract them from their own. Now, the morning is creeping in, and they've retreated back to the sanctuary of the family restaurant. Narumi brings her a latte, watching the way she grips the cup like a lifeline. They are both exhausted, runaways living on caffeine and adrenaline. They talk about the action trilogy, the sword work, and the impact of the scenes, anything to keep the conversation moving. It's in these small, trivial debates that they find their rhythm. Sharing their thoughts makes the clock move faster, turning their desperate flight into something that feels almost like a real date. Kohaku leans back, her smile soft and dangerously honest. She knows this is a bubble, a temporary reprieve from a life that wants to crush her. But in this booth, she feels safe. I wish these moments could go on forever. I don't want it to end. They're talking about finding a place for a nap, planning their next move in the low light of the early morning. But the sanctuary has been breached. A cold, familiar voice cuts through the soft atmosphere, shattering the peace like glass on concrete. Then just come home already. It's her. Kuan is standing right there, looking down at them with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She's found them in the middle of nowhere, proving that for an idol, there's no such thing as a secret. The reality hits them like a physical blow. They are just kids, and their rebellion can be crushed in an instant. Kohaku-chan, that's what you want, right? The dawn light in the restaurant turns cold in an instant. Kuan stands there like a high-fashion ghost, her heels clicking against the linoleum with a precision that makes the air feel thin. She doesn't look angry. She looks like she's already won. She stares down at her sister, her voice a silk-wrapped blade as she admits, "I was really worried." Before Kohaku can even breathe, the space between them vanishes. It's not a hug, it's a capture. Kuan throws herself forward, sparkling with a public-facing energy that feels like a physical assault. "Kohaku-chan," she screams, a performance of sisterly love that leaves Kohaku wide-eyed and paralyzed. The restaurant's morning crowd is starting to stare, exactly what Kuan wants. She's babbling about that damn hag kicking Kohaku out, making it sound like a fun little drama instead of a life-shattering crisis. Kohaku tries to push back, her ears burning as she gestures toward Narumi. She manages to choke out a single word, "Friend?" Narumi feels the piercing intensity of a professional gaze. Kuan shifts her attention, and suddenly the loving sister mask has a sharper edge. She's already done her homework, greeting him by his full name with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She introduces herself as the big sis, but the way she towers over them makes it clear. She's the one in charge. Narumi doesn't flinch. He looks her straight in the eye, refusing to play into the idol's rhythm. When she thanks him for protecting her sister, he corrects her with a bluntness that stops her mid-breath. "I didn't protect her. I just wanted to take her side as a friend." Kuan's smile wavers, a flicker of genuine interest breaking through the polish. The atmospheric pressure in the booth drops 20 degrees. Kuan claps her hands together, a bright final sound that signals the end of their little rebellion. She's done playing nice. With a cheery, terrifying finality, she declares the fun is over, time to head back. Kohaku's grip on the table tightens. For the first time, she doesn't just fold under her sister's gravity. She tells Kuan to go back alone, her voice trembling but certain. When Kuan asks why, Kohaku delivers the truth that strips away the shopping trip pretense. This isn't a trip, it's running away. Kuan goes for the throat. She drops the idol act and leans into a cruel, grounded reality. She reminds Kohaku that running doesn't change their mother's heart, it only makes them homeless. "Nothing will change," she whispers, a verbal poison designed to make Kohaku feel small and utterly alone even with Narumi standing right there. Kuan moves in for the kill, her face inches from Kohaku's. She's not just talking, she's defining her. She calls her fragile, a little girl who stumbled and despaired while trying to follow in a star's footsteps. She paints Kohaku's escape as a sweet dream world, a childish delusion that's finally over. The hug returns, but this time it's a cage. Kuan pulls Kohaku against her chest, her voice a low, possessive hum. She'd rather see her sister locked up inside the house than lost in the world. "My cute little angel," she murmurs, a term of endearment that sounds more like an owner talking to a pet. Kuon is promising everything, erasing their mother, building a new home, devoting her entire existence to Kohaku. It sounds like a fairy tale, but Kohaku can feel the walls closing in. She's trapped in what she calls a sweet cocoon, a beautiful prison where she can't move and she can't run away. The silence in the restaurant is deafening. Kohaku looks at her sister, and the guilt she's been carrying since they left finally crushes her. She sees the perfect sister sacrificing everything, and she can't help but think the one getting in the way the most is herself. Kuon's smile is blindingly bright as she delivers the ultimate guilt trip. She offers to disappear from Kohaku's sight if her presence is the problem, acting the martyr to ensure Kohaku never leaves her. Kohaku feels like she's falling, the ground beneath her feet dissolving into her sister's calculated kindness. The spell breaks with a voice that's steady and defiant. Narumi doesn't care about the idol or the family drama. He cuts through the manipulation with a single question. "Do you seriously think that would make Kazemiya happy?" He introduces himself again, but this time it's a declaration. "I'm Kazemiya Kohaku's ally." Kuon tries to dismiss him as an outsider, but Narumi steps directly into the fire. He claims he's the one who incited the whole thing. He looks her in the eye and takes the weight of the runaway attempt on his own shoulders, telling a beautiful lie just to give Kohaku room to breathe. "It is true," he insists, ignoring Kohaku's shocked protest. Narumi's voice softens, but the impact is even heavier. He tells Kuon about the face Kohaku was making the day she left, a face full of tears and despair. He did it for one simple, devastatingly honest reason. He just wanted to see her smile again, but he's not done. He has an even more important reason for tempting her away. The world stops. Narumi drops the mask of the noble protector and admits to a pure, raw selfishness that makes Kohaku's heart skip a beat. "It's because I wanted to have Kazemiya all to myself." It's not a joke, and the look on his face makes it clear. He's dragging her into his world, and he's not sorry about it. Kohaku is blushing furiously, trying to understand why he'd take the blame, but Kuon just looks amused. The celebrity idol finds this drama interesting. She leans in, reminding Narumi that she has the power to end this with a single phone call. "Like calling the police," she says, her smile turning sharp and predatory. Narumi doesn't blink at the threat. He stares right through the famous singer-songwriter, telling her he couldn't care less what happens to anyone else. Kuon laughs, genuinely impressed by the first person to ever oppose her so directly. "In honor of you, I'll back off this time," she concedes, finally releasing the tension. Kuon slides a pair of headphones across the table, a physical anchor back to the world Kohaku tried to block out. She calls them a tool of rejection, something used to run away and hide from unpleasant things. Kohaku takes them, the weight of her sister's words sitting heavy in her palms. Kuon isn't leaving for good. She promises to be back tomorrow, warning that this runaway game can't last forever. As she turns her back, Narumi stops her with one last question. He quotes her own words back to her. "You said Kohaku is weak, right?" Narumi's parting shot is a shield for Kohaku's pride. He tells Kuon that Kohaku is strong enough that she doesn't need protection. Kuon's heels click away, but the echo of her departure leaves a heavy silence in the booth. They both know the clock is ticking, and the trouble Narumi is causing is only just beginning. Kohaku is drowning in her sister's words again, calling herself weak for always running away. Narumi doesn't offer a lecture, he just moves. He slides into the seat right next to her, a solid, warm presence that forces her to look at him. When she asks why he's so close, he just shrugs. Just felt like it. The proximity helps, but the weight of the social fallout is sinking in. Kohaku looks at him, exhausted and guilty for making him stay awake all night. She thinks about his mother, about the world they left, and decides she's had enough. "So let's go home," she says, her voice small and defeated. Narumi isn't ready to let the dream end. He tells her he doesn't want to go back yet. He wants to keep running away with her. He reaches out, his hand hovering near hers as he reminds her of their pact. "We're the Family Restaurant Alliance, right?" He's not just her ally, he's her partner in exile. Kohaku calls him unfair for saying things like that, but she can't hide her smile. Narumi's honesty is a wrecking ball to her self-hatred. He tells her he likes seeing her smile, and for the first time today, the light in her eyes is real. She admits she likes seeing him smile too. They really do get along, even in the middle of a disaster. They find themselves echoing their very first exchange in this exact same setting. Narumi asks her the fundamental question again. Does she really want to go home? This time, she doesn't give the right answer. She gives the true one. I want to keep running away with you. Kohaku still hates herself for being weak, but Narumi sees her differently. He points out that while he would just block everything out, she actually listens to her sister's songs. She checks every release, practices at karaoke. She faces the very thing that hurts her every single day. That isn't weakness. That's a strength he can barely fathom. The vulnerability goes deeper. Kohaku admits the thought she's been terrified to say out loud. I sometimes wished she'd just disappear. She knows her sister isn't at fault, but the pressure was so great she wished for her own reality to break. She calls it a bad thing, waiting for Narumi to judge her. Narumi doesn't flinch. He reaches out and gently tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, a touch that says more than any words could. He tells her not to blame herself, because he knows her true feelings aren't just that darkness. There's more to her than her worst thoughts, and he's going to be the one to find it. They start making a plan for the next encounter. Narumi tells her to say everything she wants to say tomorrow. No more hiding behind idle sister roles or fragile labels. If things go wrong, they'll just run away together again. Kohaku finally laughs, the tension of the last hour evaporating into a soft, shared moment. Kohaku feels a weight lifting that she didn't know she could shed. Her heart feels unbelievably light, and she looks at Narumi like he's a magician who just pulled off the impossible. They decide to spend the day recharging with movies and karaoke, earning their second stamp, a tiny ink-stained trophy of their survival. While they find peace in the booth, Kwan walks alone through the towering skyline of the city. Her heels click against the pavement, a rhythmic, lonely sound that echoes off the glass buildings. She looks small against the massive architecture, a star returning to the sky she claimed to hate. Kwan stops and looks back, her expression unreadable. She's not done with Kohaku, she's just changing the game. She whispers to the wind, a promise that feels like a threat. The Kazemiya Kohaku that you hate will disappear properly. The idol is preparing to tear down her own world, and none of them are ready for the fallout. High above the city, the air is cold and the skyline is a jagged wall of glass. Kwan stands at the edge, her heels clicking against the concrete like a countdown. She's staring into the abyss of her own reputation, ready to burn it all down. She whispers to the empty air, I'll make sure she disappears for good. Before the lights and the cameras, there was just a young woman who found the world too easy. Everything came without effort, and the praise from adults felt like static. She looked like a prodigy to them, but inside she was a disaster waiting to happen. She knew the truth that no one else saw. There was nothing behind her smile. The world runs on connections she didn't want. Every fake smile was a brick in a wall that kept her isolated. It got so heavy that the thought of just stopping started to feel like a relief. But then, a voice broke through the static. Wani-chan. And there she was. A tiny, glowing burst of pure affection in a world made of gray. Kohaku didn't care about prodigies or talent. She just saw her sister. She wrapped her arms around Kwan and shouted, I love you, Wani-chan. The world didn't stop being boring, but suddenly it didn't matter. As long as she had this one little person looking up at her, Kwan found a reason to keep her feet on the ground. Maybe living just for Kohaku wouldn't be so bad. But even a genius has a limit. Kwan thought she could find joy in singing, but her mother's voice was a razor, cutting her down before she could even start. You're just not cut out for singing. For someone used to being perfect, hearing that she was bad felt like the floor falling away. She sat there with a book in her lap, the words blurring as the criticism sunk in. She really thought she had no weaknesses, until the single prize she wanted became the one thing she couldn't have. But Kohaku wasn't listening to their mother. She looked at Kwan with those wide, trusting eyes and declared it was awesome. If the world didn't want her to sing, she'd just have to train harder. She stood up, fueled by a toddler's praise, and headed for the door. The training was brutal, and the criticism never stopped. Every day was a reminder that she was wasting her time, that she should just give up and be the perfect doll they wanted. But then she'd go home, and Kohaku would be waiting with that gap-toothed grin. Weni-chan's singing, "I love it." That was the secret. When she stepped into the spotlight, she wasn't singing for the crowd or the critics. She was singing to keep that one little girl smiling. So don't stop singing, Weni-chan. The stage becomes a dreamscape, a blur of light and sound where the only thing that's real is the reach of her hand. She can feel the music physically, a weightless sensation like feathers drifting in the air. Every note is a bridge back to the room where Kohaku first cheered for her. But the higher Kwon climbed, the further away she felt. She knew that being a star meant being compared to everyone, including her own sister. She wondered why Kohaku still cheered when her success was casting such a long, dark shadow. "I still really love your singing voice, Weni-chan." That was it. Kohaku was an angel who gave her the gift of song, a fragile thing that needed to be protected from the harshness of their family. Kwon looked at her sister and saw something too pure for their world. She convinced herself that Kohaku was too delicate to survive on her own. She kept her away from their mother, away from the poison, but in doing so she built a cage. She treated her sister like a bird that would break if it ever flew too far from her side. She came chasing after her because she was terrified of losing her, but all she did was confirm that the cage had finally broken. The sister she loved didn't see a protector, she saw a jailer. "I really do need to disappear, for Kohaku-chan's sake." Back in the present, the wind whips between them on the roof. Kwon searches for the little girl she used to know, hoping this whole runaway attempt was just a phase. "Does that mean you're ready to come home?" But Kohaku isn't a child anymore. She stands her ground, the city lights reflecting in her eyes as she rejects the easy way out. She admits the jealousy and the pain of living in Kwon's shadow, but she won't let her sister play the martyr. "Don't decide that for me." Underneath all the resentment was something much simpler: admiration. Kohaku was proud of the superstar her sister had become, even when it hurt. She wanted to be like her, not just protected by her. She looks her sister straight in the eye, stripping away the roles of idol and refugee until it's just two sisters on a roof. The words land with more weight than any stage performance ever could. "I love you, Weni-chan." Kohaku points out the songs, the titles, the hidden messages meant just for her. She realizes they've both been running one into the street and one into a fake persona. "So face me properly." There was so much left to do. So much they never got to say because the house was always too quiet or too loud. But for now, Kohaku is choosing a different path. She tells her sister to do her best at work, but she's not coming back. Not yet. Kwon watches her walk away, feeling the sting of the truth. She thought she was protecting a fragile angel, but Kohaku has grown stronger than she ever imagined. She's finally standing on her own 2 feet. It's frustrating, but Kwon can see the reason for the change. Narumi was there when she wasn't. He gave Kohaku the space to find herself. Kwon lets out a breath she's been holding for years. "Mission failed, I lost and you two won." The city lights twinkle like a million witnesses as Kwon pulls out her phone. She's not calling to surrender, she's calling to report a failure. Her mother's voice is as sharp as ever, demanding she get back to work. "Then you've had your fill, haven't you?" The schedule is adjusted, the excuses are made, but the tone has shifted. Kwon tells her mother that they both need to stop running. Kohaku is growing up, and the world they built to contain her is crumbling. She hangs up, the screen going dark as she looks out over her kingdom. She whispers a final insult to the woman who tried to break them both. "Stupid old hag." The guilt is heavy, but at long last, it's a weight she's willing to carry. Down in the real world, the tension finally breaks. Kohaku collapses into the booth, her adrenaline fading into pure exhaustion. That was the very start of her ever really fighting with her sister, and the relief is overwhelming. I was so nervous." Narumi looks at her with genuine awe. He knows how much courage that took. But Kohaku just smiles, her eyes bright and clear. She was only able to face the storm because he gave her a place to hide first. He recharged her heart, and she's not letting go of that. She asks the question that's been hovering in the air: is it just because they're friends? Narumi doesn't blink, doesn't look away. He gives her the truth, simple and terrifyingly direct. "Because you're important to me." The heavy moment is immediately punctured by a sizzling plate of meat. The waitress drops off their order, blissfully unaware of the romantic earthquake that just happened. It's time for a celebration. Yeah, it's a celebration. They decide to name the day properly, Sister Fight Day. It's a ridiculous title for a life-changing moment, but it's theirs. Kohaku looks across the table, her heart finally steady. With you, Narumi, they add another stamp to their collection, their tiny, ink-stained proof of survival. Every restaurant has its own personality, a temporary home in a world that doesn't want them. They pack up their things, ready for the next stop. It turns out, Kuan left them a parting gift, a place to stay that doesn't involve lurking in 24-hour booths. There's a catch though. They have to work for it. Narumi reads the description out loud, his brain stalling out. Cooking and serving food at a beach hut. A beach hut. In the middle of summer, Narumi's face goes from confused to absolutely terrified as the realization hits him. He's going to see Kohaku in a swimsuit. His quiet runaway life just got a whole lot louder. Summer isn't over yet. The secret getaway just turned into a high-stakes kitchen nightmare. Orders are piling up as the summer heat bakes the shack from the inside out. Kohaku is shouting for backup, calling out, 2 yakisoba, and 1 blue Hawaii, and 1 strawberry shaved ice. Narumi doesn't blink, eyes locked on the grill as he barks orders to Natsuki to handle the ice. The air is so thick with humidity and grease that Narumi can practically see the heat waves shimmering over the counters. Beside him, Natsuki is a blur of terrifyingly positive energy, thrilled to be working a real job with his best friend. But through the haze of steam and curry orders, Narumi catches a glimpse of Kohaku out front, moving with a grace that seems totally out of place in a crowded beach shack. They aren't here for the scenery. The clink of ice in a glass serves as a reminder of the cost of their freedom. Kohaku doesn't want to live off her sister's handouts forever. She's building a foundation for her new life. She looks Narumi in the eye with a quiet, steely resolve and says, I want to earn money so that I can keep this runaway life going. Narumi knows the logistics of a secret life are a nightmare, especially when you're supposed to have parental permission just to flip a burger. But Natsuki, the guy with more friends than Narumi has thoughts in a day, handled everything. He found the job, skipped the red tape, and even showed up to work the same shifts. Narumi watches his friend crack open a ramune, feeling a rare, heavy weight of gratitude. The break time ramune is cold, but the conversation is starting to burn. Natsuki watches Kohaku walk away on her break, noting how much she's changed from the clumsy girl who started last week. He leans in, the playfulness dropping out of his voice as he mentions he's been meaning to ask Narumi something. The air between them suddenly feels even hotter than the kitchen. Natsuki isn't playing around anymore. He knows Narumi's history, the trauma of a father who vanished, and the fear of ever being honest about what he wants. He's tired of watching Narumi hold back just to avoid disappointing Kohaku. He stares his best friend down, delivering a blow that hits with the impact of a physical punch. Give Kazemiya to me. The response is instantaneous, stripped of any hesitation or politeness. Narumi snaps back. Absolutely not. It's the most honest he's been all summer, and it leaves Natsuki wearing a satisfied, knowing grin. But the peace is short-lived. A hand reaches out, a familiar voice cutting through the humid air to address the beautiful lady behind the counter. Kuan arrives like a heatwave within a heatwave, draped in a sun hat and a smirk. She's leaning over the counter, flirting with her own sister just to see that signature icy glare. Kohaku doesn't even look up from her work, her voice dripping with professional disdain as she says, please refrain from harassing the staff. Kuan isn't just here to tease. She's brought an appetite and an agenda. She stacks the table with ramen, takoyaki, and oden, insisting that she isn't eating it all alone. Despite the exhaustion clinging to her bones, Kohaku caves, sitting down for the first family meal she's had since the world fell apart. The food smells incredible, but the atmosphere is heavy with everything they aren't saying. Kuan has always been a sniper when it comes to social cues. Between bites of ramen, she drops a question that makes Kohaku's world tilt. You're currently dating Narumi, right? The reaction is instant, a splash of water, a face turning a deep, undeniable crimson, and a panicked shout of, I'm not, that carries way too much defensive energy to be true. The teasing stops. The silence that follows is thick and honest. Kohaku looks down at the table, her hands trembling just a fraction as she abandons the lies. She can't hide behind the word friend when he's the only person who truly saw her in the dark. She looks up, her eyes clear and filled with a terrifyingly soft weight, and finally says it out loud, "Because I love him." The warmth of the confession is instantly killed by a rhythmic tap-tap-tap of heels on the floorboards. Kwon's smile fades, replaced by a supportive look that carries the heavy air of a final goodbye. Then, the shadow falls over them. Their mother stands there, sharp and cold as an Arctic wind, looking down at the daughter she threw away. Her voice is a flat, emotionless edge as she asks, "Kohaku, why are you here?" It's the most uncomfortable dinner in history. They sit in the middle of a bustling beach hut, surrounded by happy tourists, while the three of them eat in a vacuum of silence. Kohaku watches her mother out of the corner of her eye, noticing how she barely touches her food, her movements mechanical and drained of the terrifying power she used to wield. The monster is gone. In its place is a woman who looks like she's about to shatter. Kohaku stares at the dark circles under her mother's eyes, the way her skin has lost its luster, and the subtle, worrying weight loss. The woman who once felt like a mountain in Kohaku's life suddenly looks fragile, and the realization strikes with gut-wrenching force. Was her mother always this small? The meal ends as abruptly as it began. Her mother stands, checking the time and noting they need to head to the next site. No apology, no reconciliation, just a professional schedule. As they walk away, Kohaku finds herself reaching out, a frantic mom, caught in her throat as she watches the woman who raised her disappear back into the crowd. The ocean waves roar in the background, filling the silence where a mother's love should be. She doesn't even turn around, simply stating that she won't be troubled without Kohaku at home. But as they move away, Kwon lingers, looking back at her sister with a soft, knowing gaze. Kohaku realizes then that this wasn't an accident. Kwon just wanted her to see the truth of their mother's state. The sun dips below the horizon, and the beach hut finally quiets down. A vibration in her pocket breaks the trance. It's a text from Narumi, asking to hang out by the sea once his shift ends, just the two of them. Kohaku traces the words on the screen, a small, sad smile playing on her lips as she types back her answer. "Sure thing. I'll wear my swimsuit." The moonlight hits the sand, and Narumi's brain completely short-circuits. Kohaku steps into the light, the white bikini a sharp, bright contrast against the dark night sea. She's gorgeous, she's glowing, and she's standing right in front of him saying, "Sorry to keep you waiting." Narumi can't even remember how to breathe, let alone how to speak. He tries to play it cool, stammering out a compliment while they head toward the surf. The water is a shock against their skin, a cold, sharp wake-up call. Kohaku laughs, splashing him as the tension of the day begins to melt into the rhythm of the waves. For a second, they aren't runaways or broken children. They're just two teenagers in the ocean at midnight. The waves crash around them, a chorus of splashes and laughter. Kohaku is beaming, her hair soaked and her eyes sparkling in a way Narumi has never seen before. She's shouting at him to stop, laughing through her words, "Ha ha, hey, stop it already." In this moment, under the stars, she looks completely and utterly free. The laughter dies down, leaving only the steady roar of the tide. Kohaku wipes the salt from her eyes, the playfulness vanishing as the reality of the day settles back onto her shoulders. She knows Narumi didn't just ask her here to splash around. Her eyes fix on him, the moonlight catching the moisture on her skin, and prompts him for the truth. He doesn't look away, saying simply, "I just wanted to see you, Kazemiya." He knew she saw them, her mother, her sister, the ghost of her old life. He didn't want her to have to process that weight alone. But as he reaches out to support her, he sees the look in her eyes. It's not defeat, it's a terrifying kind of clarity. She has something to say, something that's been building in her chest since she saw how small her mother looked at that table. The words are a death knell for their sanctuary. She stands in the surf, her voice barely a whisper against the wind, and says, "I've decided to go home." She explains the image she can't shake, her mother who raised her and Kwon alone after the divorce, now looking so fragile. She realized she has Narumi for support, but her mother has no one. She's choosing the responsibility she hated over the freedom she loved. She's going back to apologize, to be the support her mother never asked for. But as she says it, the heartbreaking reality sets in. If she goes back, she loses the reason to run away. Her gaze drifts toward the moonlit horizon as she delivers the final blow. This relationship will end. He won't let her walk away into that cold house alone, not after everything. The family restaurant alliance was just a label, a flimsy excuse they used to keep from drowning. He steps forward, his voice cracking the heavy silence of the beach as he prepares to tear down the walls she's trying to build between them. He reminds her of the promise he made that he wanted to monopolize her time. That feeling hasn't changed just because she's found a way back to her family. He knows that technically, if she can go home, their excuse for being together is gone. He knows that logically the relationship should end, but his heart isn't listening to logic anymore. He's done with being just friends or allies in a secret war. He steps into her space, his eyes burning with a fire that outshines the moon. He tells her he won't hand her over to anyone, that even without a reason to run, he wants to stay by her side forever. He catches her gaze, his voice firm and absolute, "I love you, Kazemiya." He pours out every memory, the all-nighters watching movies, the way she got mad over a single bite of a hamburger, and the realization that the cool, hard-to-read girl was actually the most vibrant person he'd ever met. He's drowning in her, and he doesn't want to be saved. He just wants her all to himself. The tears finally break through. Kohaku looks at him, her heart finally matching the rhythm of his. She doesn't need an alliance or a secret hideout anymore. She reaches out, touching his face as she offers him everything she is. She whispers, "All of me, I'll give it to you, Narumi. They're done being runaways. They're choosing to be lovers, and nothing else." They pull each other close in the middle of the dark ocean, the waves washing over them as they cross the final line. The fear of going home, the shadow of their families, it all feels distant compared to the heat of this embrace. Kohaku pulls him tighter, her voice a soft, desperate plea, "Drown me more and more." The salt air is gone, replaced by the scent of roasted coffee and the low hum of a city that never stopped moving while they were away. Kohaku sits across from him, those white headphones around her neck like a familiar anchor. She isn't the ice queen or a runaway fugitive anymore. She's just the girl who promised him everything. They're back at the family restaurant where the secret started, but the air feels heavier now. The fantasy is over, and the real world is waiting just outside that glass door. The city lights are back, but the air feels different. Natsuki is waving goodbye at the terminal, his easy smile a reminder of the world they briefly left behind. Narumi and Kohaku stand together on the sidewalk, no longer fugitives, but a couple with a destination they can't avoid. The summer job at the beach house is a closed chapter now. A sleek black van pulls up, and the city's noise is swallowed by the hum of an engine. Kwan is behind the wheel, her eyes sharp behind sunglasses as she asks the question that ends their vacation for good. "Finished seeing your friends off?" Inside the car, the silence is a physical weight. Kwan wanted to thank Narumi properly, but her presence in public causes too much of a stir. Kohaku watches her sister, sensing the unease beneath the professional mask. She's ready to go home, but she needs to know why her sister is looking at her like she's already broken. Narumi doesn't pull his punches. "Kazemiya and I've decided that we're done dragging out this runaway gag." He's claiming his place by her side. But Kwan's expression doesn't soften. Her gaze fixes on Kohaku, her voice dropping into a register of pure dread. "It'll only hurt you, Kohaku-chan." Kwan warns her that once she hears the truth, home might become a place she can never return to. Kohaku doesn't answer with words. She reaches out, her fingers lacing through Narumi's in the back seat. It's a silent anchor. A refusal to be scared off by ghosts. She stares down the rearview mirror with a gaze that has finally found its center. The old Kohaku might have shattered, but this one has a reason to stay whole. She says it with a quiet, devastating pride. "Because I have a boyfriend, so it's okay." Kwan relents, a sad smile touching her lips. If Kohaku has someone to hold her up, then maybe it's time to open the wound. She begins the story of a woman left alone after a divorce, drowning in the pressure of raising 2 daughters with nothing but her own exhaustion to keep her warm. The story takes a jagged turn into the dark. Their mother went back to her parents, but when things failed there, something inside her just snapped. Kohaku was only 2 years old. Kwan's voice trembles as she delivers the memory. "She hit you, Kohaku-chan. There was a lot of blood." In the chaos that followed, their mother went pale, frantically calling for an ambulance. The wound healed, and Kohaku's mind buried the trauma, but her mother never found a way to forget. To her, Kohaku isn't just a daughter, she's a living monument to her own worst moment. For her mother, Kazemiya herself is a source of guilt. Kohaku absorbs the blow, a flush of heat in her cheeks as she thanks her sister for the truth. They both understand now, the mother they fear is just a woman broken by her own struggle. But as the heavy story ends, Kwon shifts the mood, her eyes narrowing as she scrutinizes the boy sitting next to her sister. The protective sister suddenly becomes the ultimate tease. If you've already kissed, then I. The car suddenly feels very small. Kohaku's face goes full-blown crimson, and Narumi looks like he's trying to phase through the upholstery. Kwon isn't letting them off easy, leaning in with a grin that promises no mercy. They end up at their usual spot, the family restaurant, but the food is an afterthought. Kohaku is slumped over the table, the sheer exhaustion from the car ride finally catching up to her. Narumi watches her, the worry etched into his face, as he realizes that seeing her get along with her sister was the only easy part of the day. Kohaku leans into him, her fingers knotting together in a frantic rhythm. She's looping on her mother's words that just being near her daughter makes it hard to breathe. The pain of being a burden is more sharp than the memory of the hit. She whispers the impossible question. How am I supposed to fix that? Narumi knows that if her mother truly hated her, she wouldn't feel the crushing weight of guilt. He sees a glimmer of hope where Kohaku sees only rejection. He keeps his eyes on her, his heart aching for the girl who just wants to believe there's a sliver of love left in that house. A small smile finally breaks through. She thanks him, the heaviness lifting just enough to let the hunger in. They distract themselves with the mundane, filling out a prize stamp card on her phone, choosing something they can both use. It's a tiny domestic victory in the middle of a storm. They leave with a pair of matching straps, a physical tether to one another. As they walk through the quiet evening, Kohaku stops, her gaze fixing on the path ahead. She has one more hurdle, and she can't clear it alone. Narumi, I have a favor to ask. Is that okay? The favor is a heavy one. She wants him by her side when she stands before her mother. She'd planned to go alone, but after hearing the truth, the prospect is too terrifying. I realized I probably couldn't handle it on my own. She covers her eyes, her hand shaking. To her, this fear is a weakness, a lame reaction she should have outgrown. But Narumi sees it differently. He observes her struggle and sees a strength he lacks, the courage to face a family that has already cast her aside. He steps into her space, his voice a steady hum against her panic. He'll be her support, her shield, whatever she needs. He gives her the only instruction that matters, just stand tall and face her. As long as he's there, Kohaku feels like she can face anything. The high-rise looms over them, a monument of glass and concrete. Kwon stays in the car. 3 people cornering their mother would be a trial, not a conversation. Kohaku takes a breath, looking at the tower that used to be home, and whispers a promise to do her best. The hallway is sterile and silent. Part of her wants to turn around and run back to the beach, back to the hideout where the world couldn't reach them. But Narumi is right there, his presence a silent reminder that she has someone who accepts every part of her. The door opens with a soft click. Her mother is at the table, the rhythmic tap-tap of the laptop keys the only greeting. Kohaku stands there, heart hammering against her ribs, before finally breaking the silence with a single word. Mom. The clicking stops. Her mother doesn't even turn around. Her voice is ice, dismissing the summer as a little game. Then, she drops the first jagged stone. You're such a nuisance. Kohaku flinches, the old resentment bubbling up, but she holds it down. She apologizes not for running away but for the years of blind resentment. She's seen the world now. She knows how hard it is to just survive. She wants to face this head-on, to fight for a real connection instead of hiding behind a mask of hate. The table shakes under her mother's hands. I told you to stop lying like that. The woman is trembling with a rage fueled by pure, unadulterated guilt. Every time her eyes land on Kohaku, she doesn't see a child. She sees the bright red blood of her own greatest sin. Then the words that can't be taken back. Her mother screams it into the silence of the room, a jagged truth that cuts deeper than any physical blow. I should never have given birth to you. In her mind, her world would have been perfect if Kohaku never existed. Kohaku stands there, the world going quiet as the blow lands. She knew it in her head, but hearing it out loud is a different kind of death. She offers a small, broken smile, the hope finally flickering out. Should I not stay in this house anymore? But she doesn't leave with anger. She tells her mother that life isn't just pain. She learned that from Narumi, in the place they escaped to. She leaves the door cracked, even if it's just a fraction. Someday I hope you'll grow to love me. Her mother's only answer is a cold dismissal. Fine, do what you want. Her mother walks out, a silent retreat that leaves the room feeling hollow. Narumi grabs Kohaku's shoulder, his pulse racing. He can't let it end like this, in a stalemate of grief. They were running away before, but now, they have to run toward the fire. He looks her in the eye, his voice urgent. Then run, Kazemiya, while you still have time. He's not letting her leave with words left unsaid. He pushes her toward the hallway, toward the last chance to bridge the gap between two people who have been holding their breath for years. They burst out of the apartment, the city skyline a blur against the night sky. They catch sight of her mother on the path below, a lonely figure moving away from the light. Kohaku fills her lungs and screams it, a desperate final plea that echoes off the glass. Mom. Tears are streaming down her face, but her voice is as strong as it's ever been. She's not asking for permission anymore. She's stating a fact. I'll always be waiting for you to come home, Mom. It's a promise to be the anchor her mother never had. The adrenaline fades, and the world goes quiet again. Kohaku turns back to the only person who stayed when the world got cold. Her voice is a whisper now, raw and exhausted. Hey Narumi, I really want to cry in my boyfriend's arms. He doesn't wait. He pulls her in, holding her tight as the armor finally shatters. The sobs break out of her, desperate and heavy. These aren't tears of defeat, they are proof that she stood her ground. That she looked the truth in the eye and didn't blink. In Narumi's arms, the girl who had no home finally finds a place where she can just be. The sound of the door closing is final. Her mother walks away without a single glance back, leaving nothing but a cold silence in her wake. But Kohaku isn't broken. She's standing tall, her face flushed and tear-streaked as she hurls her heart into the empty hallway. She's not begging for a return, she's offering a destination. I'll be waiting for Mom to come home. Narumi pulls her close, the crushing pressure of her grief pressing against his chest. He thinks about how much it must hurt to be told to disappear by the person who gave you life. Kohaku did what he never could. She stood her ground and faced the storm head-on. As the sobs slow into heavy breaths, she looks up with a fragile, beautiful smile, whispering that she's only okay because he was there to catch her. The weight of that night lingers, but life doesn't stop. A few days pass in a blur of worry until a single message lights up Narumi's phone. They decide on a summer festival date, a chance to find something normal in the wreckage. When she finally appears, the world stops. She's standing there in a yukata, looking like a dream he's afraid to wake up from. Sorry to keep you waiting? He's staring. He can't help it. She looks too beautiful, too bright for the world they just left behind. Their fingers brush, then lock together, a silent anchor in the middle of the crowd. Even with everything she's been through, she's still smiling at him with that same sweet expression. To Narumi, that smile is nothing short of a miracle. She bites into a candy apple, her eyes lighting up with a childish joy that makes his heart ache. It's delicious, isn't it, Narumi? He watches her, mesmerized by the way the lantern light catches the line of her neck. It's lethal. He's so focused on her that the rest of the festival is just a blur of colors and noise. She talks about the yukata, a memory of a time when her mother and sister were still a family. It's a bittersweet reminder that she was loved once. Narumi watches her profile, realizing that it wasn't just the rejection that hurt her. It was the fact that she had to force the person she loved most to leave. She's grieving a life that still exists but can never be hers again. Narumi watches her, the gears turning in his head. He realizes that what her mother carries isn't pure hatred. It's a crushing, suffocating guilt. She's afraid to face the daughter she failed. He asks the question that's been hanging in the air. Your mother still hasn't come home? No, not yet. Kohaku knows her mother is working as her sister's manager, keeping her distance. She wants to see her, of course, but she knows that showing up now would only twist the knife of her mother's guilt. So she waits. Just like she changed after meeting Narumi. She hopes her mother will find a way to change in the place she ran to. The fireworks are about to start, and they decide to head back to the apartment. It's a small, quiet plan. Kohaku mentions they can see the show perfectly from her balcony. She thanks him, her voice soft and sincere, and Narumi feels that familiar surge of warmth just being near her. They step into the quiet apartment just as the first boom echoes across the sky. The darkness of the room is suddenly shattered by brilliant bursts of light outside the window. They stand together, shoulder to shoulder, as the night sky explodes into color. A message chimes on her phone. Her sister Kwan got called into work and won't be home until morning. The fireworks continue to roar outside, but inside, the air has suddenly become very still. The realization hits them both at the same time. Tonight, there is no one else coming home. The light from the fireworks dances across her face, highlighting the flush on her cheeks. She looks at him, her pulse visible in the hollow of her throat. The world outside is screaming with color and sound, but here, in the dark, her voice is the only thing that matters. So there's no one else home tonight. Narumi looks at her and feels a sudden sharp pang of inferiority. She faced her demons while he's still running from his. She looks so strong, so dazzlingly bright in the reflected light, and he feels like he has no right to even stand beside her. He asks himself the question that haunts every coward: am I really enough? She sees the doubt in his eyes and silences it with a smile that's for him and him alone. You are. You're the only one I could ever think of, Narumi. The fireworks reach a crescendo, a final thunderous burst of light that illuminates them as they finally bridge the gap. He leans in, and the world outside ceases to exist. The air is thick with a heat that has nothing to do with the summer night. Their breaths are ragged, caught in the quiet space between them. Narumi's hands are shaking, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He whispers a soft apology, but Kohaku's grip on him only tightens. I can't hold back anymore. The ticking of the clock is the only sound left as the adrenaline fades into something softer, deeper. They lie together, the sheets cool against their skin. Narumi asks if it hurt, his voice full of a tender concern that makes Kohaku smile. It's okay, I was just really happy. She teases him about the marks he left, her eyes shining with a playful, honest love. She notices the keychain on his phone, the prize from their day out. She's attached hers, too. It's a small thing, but it's a tether. She looks at him, her head resting on her arm, and makes a quiet suggestion. Hey, Narumi, wanna trade keychains? It's a way to ensure they are always with each other, even when they're apart. As they swap the small charms, Narumi feels a new kind of pressure. Kohaku has grown so much, she's standing in a world he hasn't dared to enter yet. Relying on her kindness feels like a crutch he needs to throw away. If he wants to stay by her side, he has to follow the path she blazed. He has to face his own family. Kohaku looks at him, her gaze soft but steady. She tells him that if he ever feels like running away, that's okay too. But she doesn't want him to carry the weight of regret. She thinks that if she had faced her family sooner, things might have been different. She wants a better future for him than the one she had to survive. He realizes she's still blaming herself, even while she's pushing him forward. She's incredible. Meeting her changed everything. Running away together started as an escape, but it turned into something much more valuable. He doesn't want to just run anymore. He wants to cherish the time they share. The thought of his father, of his broken home, still hurts like an open wound. He's terrified of getting hurt again. But the desire to catch up to Kohaku is stronger than the fear. He looks at her, his mind finally made up. I want to stop running and face my family head-on. Not being able to stand as her equal was a pain he couldn't bear anymore. He'll face whatever comes, because staying with her is worth every bit of the struggle. He suggests that maybe he shouldn't stay over. He doesn't want her family to worry. It's a small step toward responsibility, toward acting like the partner she deserves. She smiles, a mischievous glint in her eyes, and asks if he wants to take a bath together before he leaves. It's a moment of light-hearted intimacy that cuts through the heavy resolve of the night. He pulls her into one last embrace, whispering that he's ready. He's ready for everything. August 31st, the final day of summer vacation. The air is starting to turn, and the world is shifting back to school and schedules. But for them, everything is different. They've started calling each other by their first names. It's a small change that means the world. You're 30 seconds late, Kouta. Kohaku tells him about living with her sister. Kwan has been busy, but she's been coming home more often, claiming it's her big sister power keeping her close. It's a strange, new dynamic, but it's a family. Narumi listens to her laugh, a sound that's become his favorite part of the day. They spend the last night of summer recapping everything they did, running away, shopping, hot springs, part-time jobs. It was a lifetime lived in a few short months. But there's one memory that stands above the rest, especially that night at the festival. The conversation trails off into a comfortable silence, but the weight of the coming school year is pressing in. Suddenly, Kohaku's voice drops, becoming raw and desperate. I just really want to see you right now. It's the same vulnerability that brought them together in the first place, but now it's grounded in something solid. Once school starts, they'll see each other every day, but it'll be different. They hardly spoke there before. Kohaku worries about her reputation rubbing off on him. The rumors, the teasing, she suggests they should probably keep acting like strangers in the hallways. She doesn't want to cause him any more trouble. They agree to be careful. In the halls, it'll be Narumi and Kazemiya, a return to the formal, safe labels of the world outside. But they both know the truth. First names are for when it's just us. It's a secret world they get to keep, a private sanctuary in the middle of a crowded school. The moon hangs high and bright, a final witness to their shared summer. The call is coming to an end, but there's no sadness in it, only anticipation. Good night, Kouta. See you tomorrow at the diner. Night, Kohaku. See you tomorrow. As he hangs up, Narumi looks out at the night. He knows he can't keep running forever. The things he avoided, the things he pushed out of his mind, they're all still waiting. But for once, he has a reason to move forward. He has someone worth fighting for. No matter how much it hurts, he'll face it. He'll stand beside Kohaku, not as a coward, but as a partner. Because even when everything falls apart, some things remain. Because a family's bond is a bond that can never truly be cut. The summer is over, but their story is just beginning.